like magic is so polarized because you hear a lot in like the occult spheres, like that's high magic or low magic or that's black magic. Like, do you see a difference at all between like how people are polarized against the two?
High magic and low magic. Well, let me say first that I'm not a moral relativist, because a lot of people use what I'm about to say to relative to say that good and evil are do not exist, and it literally does not matter what you do. It's all about like the sheep and the wolf, and the wolf is evil to the sheep, right? It's all about perspective. It's not really like that. I do think that there's objective good, objective evil. There are definitely things that you should not do unless you suffer the consequences, because there's definitely something called natural law, which will punish you for violating, right? But besides that, I don't really see a distinction between high and low magic if it's done correctly. Now, if you just follow your instincts and use magic, let's say you learn the techniques of demonic evocation, right? And you use that simply and solely to satisfy your lowest instincts. That itself will destroy you, right? Because power that doesn't have a purpose uh, tends to self-destruct, if that makes sense. It distracts a person. Let me describe it in the sense of a current. Okay, a current of energy needs to flow, right? And if the energy doesn't flow towards something greater and higher development, it will cause big problems, right? So in the case of a dam, for instance, okay, where they try to store water, eventually the dam breaks because there's too much pressure, right? You can see the same with people that have, let's say, they come into enormous amounts of money, but they don't have a purpose for the money. They will usually use it for self-destructive means, right? The people that can hold on to power long term without self-destructing are the ones that have a purpose for the power, right? And it's the same with everything else. If you come into this power of let's say, the knowledge about the occult and don't have a purpose for it, a higher purpose, and you're not guided by a higher vision or a higher self, you will automatically self-destruct, because nobody, if there is nothing, no authority beyond your instincts that guides your actions, you will obviously, uh, you will become a degenerate, you know, and that's really the point. So what I'm saying is, you can use the various manifestations here, or you can use the physical world as a learning ground. However, you have to still be guided by a higher understanding. So you can, in the worst situations, let's say you go to jail for 30 years, it's probably one of the worst situations they can be in. It's like constant, I don't know, it's probably one of the worst experiences, right? But you can use it as a spiritual growth process. Others break because they don't have the spiritual perspective. You said you went through a major disability after your accident, right?
Yeah.
And apparently you grew from it, right? You connected to something greater. So there's definitely value in being in these lower realms, and the physical world definitely has its perks, but for the most part, it's just not a pretty place, and that's because Saturn rules this earth. This earth. Saturn is the principle of severity. It's the principle of discipline. It's the principle of learning harsh lessons. And we can accept the lessons and grow through it, or we can just choose to ignore the lessons, and then we'll self-destruct. So the point is, I don't really think there's a distinction between high and low magic. I believe there's a distinction between high consciousness and low consciousness. And if the person has a high enough
Mm,
consciousness, or a refined enough consciousness, they will be able to turn anything and everything into a spiritual lesson.
that is so beautifully said.